We were talking a few minutes ago on this program about the tragedy that took place in San Francisco, which was completely preventable if some people there had decided they didn't have to nullify certain federal laws. And now you have well, I think on the American left they would deny that they have blood on their hands, but the policy is obviously being criticized. This notion of sanctuary cities. 844, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX, as well as anywhere around the world online at newsradio1310.com. 63. We have a very special guest joining us. She's the co-founder and national coordinator of the Remembrance Project. Her name, Maria Espinoza. She's joining us this morning. And first of all, I'd like to say welcome to the program.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
You are looking to perhaps have people, well, I won't even say perhaps, you're calling for a boycott of San Francisco.
Yes, sir, we are. We want the businesses there to put pressure on their elected officials in San Francisco, asking, we want them to feel a pressure so that they can ask officials to remove these deadly sanctuary city policies.
San Francisco, of course, as the crow flies, is not too distant from here. And I guess to drive to San Francisco from here is probably at tops 9 hours. So we have a lot of people who have made that trip for a long weekend and the like. Probably up until this shooting took place, they never realized what the city's policy was because, if you weren't paying attention, it's not like there are large signs all over the place reading Sanctuary City.
Right.
And do you find that you're getting a reaction from people today that we might be turning the corner on this finally?
Oh, I feel it, Bill, but I just think that people need to keep pressing hard because, as there have been other instances. Look at even 9/11, the terrorist attack. We're in a worse situation and less safe today than we were 11 years ago.
Almost 14 years ago.
14 years ago.
Yes. When you talk to people around the country about this subject, and I was we were having a discussion here earlier about refugee resettlement programs and the like, which is somewhat similar, I think, to any of these other discussions. It deals with immigration, is that we don't feel we have a voice any longer. And in fact, if you were to put these things up to a vote, overwhelmingly, I believe people would be in favor of ridding us of sanctuary cities and maybe having some controls on refugee resettlement. But it's as if we no longer have an opportunity. And I think we've all been brokenhearted by people we've elected who've said they're on our side, and then they get there and then say, I can't do anything about that. What's the next approach?
Well, I think that, we have emailed and visited and written letters and made our voices heard. We've had rallies and we've marched. I say take it to their front door. They are legislating on policies that affect us out here in the community while they sit behind their gated communities protected. I want to see your listeners out there in the sidewalk in your representative's neighborhood holding signs, letting his neighbors and his family know what kind of rascals they are and how they've lied to the people, their employers.
I can recall when I used to work at a radio station in southern Delaware, and we had crimes that were being committed. I know that that's not politically correct. It got a recent candidate in trouble, but we had crimes being committed by people who were here in this country illegally. And the people who were most strongly in support of allowing them here were people who were living in those gated communities you mentioned. And I had a friend who had worked for the State Department, and he had long left that job. But he said if suddenly they had these people living in their neighborhoods, there would be a different tune that they would be singing. You would agree with that?
Absolutely. And, what else do we do, Bill? We've done everything in the process. We've followed the law, and yet they're legislating in order to fill their pockets or their reelection campaigns. This is absolutely wrong, and we have to get off our sofas and get out there.
This story really was underscored by the Steinle killing in California, but the Remembrance Project. Obviously, you're aware of dozens, scores, maybe hundreds of these types of stories that don't get anywhere near as much attention.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's very unfortunate. And even in 2008, the Bologna family, right there in San Francisco, father and his two teenage sons were gunned down by an illegal alien MS-13 gang member. How soon they forget in San Francisco. And where I am in Houston, Texas, we're a sanctuary city as well. This mayor denies that we are a sanctuary city, but we are, and we're working hard and to remove these legislators who voted against the ending sanctuary city policies all over Texas.
It's 8:49. Our guest is Maria Espinoza. She is joining us from the Remembrance Project. She's the co-founder of that organization and the national coordinator, and she's calling for a boycott of San Francisco. And I would assume that, that we hear this all the time from the left. They were trying to boycott Bobby Jindal in Louisiana because they didn't like some of his policies, and they wanted to boycott Arkansas. But they don't like it when it's actually turned around and used against them, do they?
Exactly. And that's why we're doing it. We're doing the same thing they're doing to us. So, we see that it works. We have to keep it in the news. And, there are some hearings going on next week in Washington, D.C., where we're taking family members up to testify. So here we are. We're doing everything that we can, simply asking to uphold the laws, Bill. That's all we want.
And how large is your organization? I would assume it's growing now because of the whether or not people like Donald Trump. He certainly brought some attention to this, and I think that in conjunction with the Steinle homicide, obviously it draws attention to what you're doing. Are you seeing more and more people checking out the website? Are they asking for more details, more information?
Yes, they are. Yes, for all those reasons. And I'm glad you mentioned Mr. Trump, because I was just going to bring him up. We love what he is saying right now. He is speaking the truth. He's calling out the big white elephant in the room. And the families, as you can see, there are some videos, and I will share them with you so you can maybe post them for your audience to view.
Sure.
We scrambled a week ago to get some of the families to meet with Mr. Trump in L.A., and they did. It was wonderful. He met with them privately. He allowed them to get up there and use the media attention he was getting to speak and tell their stories. And some of the families there, Miss Moreno accused the liberal media and put the blame on them for not telling the truth about what is taking place, and they're being killed up there in California, as all across the country. Mr. Trump then went to Vegas and then went to Phoenix, where we met up with him in Phoenix there with more family members from that Phoenix area. And we gathered three, and our director out there, Barb, was absolutely fantastic, and so was Robin in L.A., and scrambling, putting together, placing the families there with him so someone could listen and hear their stories and get it out there. Right now, Mr. Trump is a hero to the families of the victims because he's speaking the truth.
I think to a lot of us, though, it's very frustrating because he came out and he said this, and the reason he shot up in the polls so quickly was because people nodded their heads yes, but you still have media which will not acknowledge the truth in this situation, and instead it's easy to attack him, talk about his hair, talk about his many wives, whatever they can find as a deflection. It's got to be frustrating, I'm sure, for people like me, but especially so for people like you who are working in the center of all of this.
Yes, sir, it is very frustrating, Bill. And, the other side has tons of money. We are just simple people working together. I never thought that I would be doing this type of work. And here we have directors in 28 states. We have created the Stolen Lives Quilt, which are an accumulation, and the way we memorialize Americans who have been killed by someone who should not have been in the country in the first place. They are 6-foot-long banners made out of polyester, like flag-like, by 3 feet tall, and we memorialize 3 victims on each 6-foot-long, digitally printed, in color banner, and we connect the dots all across the United States, telling the stories of what's taking place to our families that the media is not doing. And we place these banners, Bill, in front of the legislators. We go to city council meetings and rallies. Everywhere we want them shown, and we don't want to forget our Americans who died unnecessarily because that person shouldn't have been here.
I'm a little remiss. We've been talking for almost 10 minutes, and I have not asked you what the website is, if people would actually like to take a look and get more details.
Yes, so that is theremembranceproject.org. So it's www.theremembranceproject.org. We would love for donations to be sent our way as well. Right now, just hold on to your wallets because we have some sort of glitch in our system. I don't know how that happened. Some gremlin got in there, but I'm working on that right now. So,
got to be the New York Times guy. It's somebody working there is trying to slow you down. It's 8:54.
Right.
8:54. Our guest, Maria Espinoza. She is, of course, the national coordinator for the Remembrance Project. It's 63, and we've got a couple of minutes left. There's a related story I happened to see today. Paul Bedard, writing at Washington Examiner, talking about the Federal Reserve, says, and the Federal Reserve not being, to my knowledge, normally in these matters, says the reason U.S. teens can't get jobs is because they're competing with immigrants, often illegal immigrants, coming into this country. My first payroll job was as a dishwasher, so I know how that works.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a line here from the Center for Immigration Studies. It's a quote. It says, "It's frustratingly common. The mainstream media discusses a social problem obviously impacted by immigration, overcrowding, low wages, increasing poverty, etc., but assiduously avoids any mention of immigration," unquote. When you hear that, this pretty much dovetails exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely it does. And, we're affected in so many ways, impacted in so many ways, and sometimes people don't understand the magnitude of this illegal immigration problem because they actually don't see it. But it's not a victimless crime. Aside from the deaths, there are people who are injured and are harmed. They get rear-ended. The person does not have a insurance, and it's all on our own policies, and our insurance goes up. I mean, those are the smaller details, but jobs are huge. We've got over 90 million Americans out of work or displaced. That's a huge problem. And where do our teenagers learn their basic responsibilities in a job? But as a dishwasher and busboy, and that's how I learned too in my parents' restaurant. We were working pretty hard. So I think there's so much that goes into it when we're not placing our American families first.
You have something in common with one of my coworkers, our news director, a fellow by the name of Benito Baeza, great newsman. Benito, of course, has a father from Mexico. He came here legally, as did yours, and we should point that out, that your families came here and they did everything the way it was supposed to be done.
Yes, and I'm glad that you mentioned Benito as well, because we have another initiative called America First Latinos. We don't believe originally to separate ourselves, but I think in this issue with illegal immigration, we have to get in the ring with those who are telling America that upholding current laws and following our Constitution is somehow racist. So America First Latinos is out there where we encourage Americans of Mexican descent or Latinos or Hispanics, whatever label you choose, to join us. And you can join online. That button is working. So you can join online and sign up for email blasts. I don't send a lot out. Mine is informative and action-driven, so that's where we are right now. We would love for you to join us and be active in your area because you can make a difference, and we have to begin somewhere, and this is a good place to begin with America.
Maria Espinoza, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking time out for our program today, and obviously anything we can do, we're at your service.
Thank you very much, Bill. God bless you, and thank you for giving our families an opportunity to be heard.
God bless you too as well, ma'am. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Maria Espinoza joining us this morning. She is the co-founder and national coordinator of the Remembrance Project, spending a few minutes with us. She's calling for a boycott of San Francisco, California, which is a sanctuary city, and as she's telling us, this has to come to an end. And she represents the families of Americans who've had victims, well, family members killed by illegal immigrants, gang members, or just this fellow last week playing with a gun and randomly killing someone along a pier in San Francisco. News is coming up next.